What's going on, everyone, and welcome back. So, today we're going to do custom classes. I wanted to do arrays or lists or whatever today, but I did not have time to do it. And there's so much going on with classes and arrays that I had to do this myself off camera, and that's because it took several hours. Uh, I spent probably a good portion of Friday making this, and there was just no way I could have done this on the fly in like a hour long episode. I did not get to erase because uh, I finally got the format down to correspond with custom classes. And I think all I have to do is um, do the formatting for the scene file and do some simple things with the editor. But I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at that later and see exactly uh, how easy that's going to be to implement. And sorry if I seem a little out of it today. I have only been up like probably less than an hour, and I was out all night last night. So we'll see how this goes. So with this, we had to change a ton of things. I had to rewrite functions. Um, I had to change like some of the formatting, not really like what it looks like, but the letters we use for it. So if I come over here to new scene, I'll just kind of briefly show. So right here, normally before we had it set to C for component, but now we're just going to have it set to B for behavior. And then we're setting C to class, a custom class. And this is going to be kind of how it is laid out. So it's going to be G, B for behavior. It's going to close it off at the end. It's going to open, close. Inside of here, one of the variables is a custom class. So of course it opens up the custom class, and then it shows the variables for this class. And then whenever it closes it off, that's the end of that custom class. And arrays or lists, or I think I'm going to use lists because I was looking around and kind of writing up some different ways on how I could possibly implement custom lists, and I was just having some issues, and I don't think we're going to be able to use lists. I think we're just going to have to use arrays for now and just move to lists later once I get out of the whole tutorial part. Mainly because the compiler doesn't know anything about the list, so if there's one element in the list, then it would know exactly what is inside of the list. But if it's empty, it has no idea it could be any kind of object, and that's the issue. Because if it's in the editor, we haven't put anything in it yet, and it's empty. Of course, it's not going to know what in the world it is. But I may find some way of doing it. But the biggest issue with arrays is you cannot extend from arrays. So we can't add an extra boolean in there or whatever for opening and closing. Like I'm going to show you how we're doing it in the classes. So that's the biggest issue with array versus array list. Array list or any kind of list, it doesn't know the type, which is its downfall. And the downfall of the array is you can't add extra variables and stuff. So let's go ahead and get into the code. Now there's a lot of stuff changed in here, like I said. So be prepared for that. I even had to rebuild this whole function inside of the inspector. But before we get into that, you have to change your scene files if you have big scene files or whatever. If you don't, then if you don't even have like a scene that you even care about, you can just delete it and whatever. But if you do have a scene that you want to keep, then what we need to do is we need to do the saving first, kind of like what we did on the last episode. So I think it's under editor. Save config, open project, save scene. Yes. Okay. I don't think I changed anything up here. Pretty sure all of this is all the same. I don't remember if I kept the name right component last time. But if I changed anything at all, it would be this line, like this right here. So it'd be a right component, then we're passing in b.getI and then fw. So if that doesn't look the same as yours, then that probably would have been changed. All right, now the biggest thing right here is right component really doesn't do much. All right component is going to do is it's going to call this right class, and then it's going to say fw.right, and then we're going to close the behavior. And anytime, whether it's a component or a custom class or whatever, we're going to call this right class method. And what it's going to be is we're going to pass in this engine.object. So the object would be B in this case, which is a logic behavior. And then we're going to pass in the file writer. And this is the starter. Now the starter is the tab text. So that's how it tabs over automatically like this, and then yeah, so it just formats it a little bit better. That's all that starter is. And then we're going to pass in the field name. Now for behaviors, it doesn't have a field name, so we're just going to pass in an empty string. And then for this, of course, we're going to write the closing statement, which all behaviors only have one tab on the closing statement. Now this function right here is going to look very similar to what we had before. Whenever I wrote this, I pretty much just copy and pasted it from the component over into the class, and then just changed a few things about it, like the layout or whatever, and added a few things. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the class from the object, and then if this object is an instance of logic behavior, then we are going to write tab behavior name, or tab B for behavior, name, and then the name of the behavior, and close it off. So just kind of like what was over here before, except for I don't remember if there was even an if statement before. So make sure you write all of this down how you see it, because I did change the how it's written a little bit. And then if it's not an instance of behavior, that means that of course it's a custom class, so we don't need to write a B, and it's not a single tab. We're gonna use the starter and we're going to use the starter, and then put a C for the class, and then it's going to be plus field name, and that's what that field name is for. We obviously already know the behavior name, but since a custom class can be anything derived from a custom class, and so that we don't have to set names and crap like that, that's why we're just passing in this field name. It's because this custom class can be literally anything. So we pass in the field name, we set equals, then we just pass in the name and then close it off with a return at the end. And then of course we're going to get an array of all the fields, and then we're going to loop through all of the fields, and then we're going to try to write write variable fields I. So we're going to pass in the field, we're going to pass in the object, file writer, and then the starter. And of course, here's your catch statements. And then here at the very end, we're going to say if O is an instance of custom class, then we're going to write starter plus the closing C for class, and of course a return at the end. And we're only going to do that if, of course, it's a class, because behaviors use B. That's why we're writing it right here instead of over here. And as for write variable, it's going to throw illegal argument exception, illegal access exception, IO exception. And you can see right here where I started to do arrays, and then I realized that it was just going to be way too much work for not only you guys, but for me as well, to crunch into one episode. So I decided to just go ahead and keep it here for a second until this next week. So if you don't want to put this right now, you actually, no, you do have to put this right here, because we're using these else if statements. So if the field is an array, then right here I'm just saying to basically just get the array. And then later we're going to check whether it's a multi-dimensional array, like a 2D array, 3D array, or whatever. We don't want to display those in the editor, so then we're going to, of course, return out of that, and then do all of our array stuff right here. And else if the class is assignable from field.getType, then we are going to write the class, pass in the engine.object, and we're going to pass in the field and the file writer, the starter that was already up here, and the field's name. And else if it's assignable from object, because here if it's a custom class that is assignable, or engine.object is assignable. So if it's a custom class, do this, and if it's a engine.object, then we're going to say if the object equals null, then we're going to write this statement right here. It's basically exactly the same, except for we're not getting the name because it's null, so it's not going to have a name. So we're just going to pass in null. And the only reason why I'm even passing that in is just so that we can read it and know that it's null. I believe I have one up here. Yes, right here. This shader right here on the camera is null. So it's just going to say null, and then whenever it tries to find it later, it's going to be like, oh, there's no shader called null. So either way, it works. So that we can read it and it doesn't assign any shader whenever we load the scene. And if it is not null, then of course we're going to write the variable out. And if it's a primitive or it's a string, because strings are not primitives, then we're just going to simply write it out like this, which is just normal how we were writing them out before anyways. And else if it's a class, I believe this is exactly the same as before. I just put starter plus. That's really it. Everything is pretty much just starter plus and then going about the whole thing. So a lot of that is very similar. It's just repetitive stuff, but each of these are going to be written differently, is why we had to write it like that. So after that, that should be able to write out the new scene format. So let's really quick, you'll need to do custom class, which custom class is extremely easy. So it's just this right here for now. Later we're going to add more stuff, but that's going to be after the tutorial series. YouTube tutorial series, that is. So it's just custom class extends engine.object, and then all we have is just an expanded in here. That way we can open and close it in the editor to view the contents whenever we feel like doing it. And that will get rid of the no custom class error or whatever. So whenever you run it, you should be able to go over, click save scene. It'll save the scene, then you just close the window, because of course you can't read it in yet. So now that we can save it, now it'll be in the right format to actually read it in. So as for reading it in, let's see here. Load scene. None of that's different. Change right here. You need to change those from C's to B's. And we do not need that. This is the code that you guys had before that we actually wrote in the last episode, because I actually had to change a lot of that too. If I would have known that, then yeah, we would have done it a little bit differently the last episode, but yeah. Crap happens. That happens a lot whenever you're writing a game or an engine. You're just going to write code, and then immediately after you write it, be like, ah, crap, well, this needs to do it this way. So instead of all that code, right here, we're just going to loop through the behaviors in the batch that we did last episode. We are going to call set class behavior batch.get behavior. I don't think, did we have a set class? No, we did not. We had set variable. Alright, well. So set class is very, very simple. Set class is just gonna take in an object, which is, yes, an engine.object. Let me split that up there. Either way, it still reads it as engine.object, but just to show us that this is not Java's object, this is our object. And then it's going to take in a list of data, which of course is the data for whatever class we're setting. And whenever we loop in the behaviors, we pass in the behavior as an object to set class. So whenever we actually set other classes, custom classes, we do the same thing, because custom classes also derive from engine.object. And that's why we did it that way. So let's see here. I don't know exactly how all of this was laid out before, but if anything looks different over here. Oh wait, none of this was here before. Awesome. Okay. So B-line, of course, is going to be empty. Some of this was actually pulled down from whatever we did last episode, like what I deleted up here. Basically what I did was I just took a lot of that, drug it down here, and then just added on to it, and then did the whole set class thing. So I'm saying while data.size is greater than 0, then bline equals data.get0, because it's going to be the very first element inside of the data list. Because what we're going to do is we're just going to remove it, like how we do here. We're going to remove it after we set it. And if bline.starts with v, so if it's a variable, then we're going to get the separator, and then we're going to try to call set variable o sep0 sep1.split And this is also from that other class, what we did last week. And then we're going to remove the data, and then we're going to continue with the loop. And here's all the crap that is in there. That was actually copy and pasted from last week as well. Else if bline dot starts with C. So if this is a class, then we're going to get the separator, which is a little bit different. It's b dot split c1 dot split equals 0, because whenever it's a class, what it looks like is this. So a behavior looks like this. So it says b name game.test. So this right here is what we're looking for. Versus whenever we're doing custom classes, we don't care about this right here, which would be this right here, game.classTest. What we care about is this right here, because this is the name of the variable versus this is the name of the class. And how we're going to do this is we're going to try to do this. We're going to get the field, and then we're basically going to just cache the new instance of the custom class, because since it's a C, obviously it derives from custom class. And then we're going to remove the data, and it has to be in this order. If it isn't, it will not work. So don't put data.remove 0 after f.set. Stupid me did that, and it screwed me up for like 20 minutes. I'm trying to figure out why my classes weren't reading in properly. And then we're going to call f.set 0 set class, passing cached and data. And then we're going to continue. So it basically just calls the same function. It's called a recursive function whenever you continue to call the same method and then get returns and then return out. It's very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, so make sure that it looks like this, or else you may have some issues. And then of course, I guess it's got a couple more. It's got a lot of catches. So it's got a no such field exception, a security exception, an instantiation exception, illegal access, illegal argument, invocation target, no such method. So yeah, it has a lot. And then here we're going to check if it should be the end of the class. So if it's the end of the class, then we're just going to simply remove data.0 because we don't want this line anymore. And then we're going to return the object. And then here, return the object. And you might wonder, like, why would you return the object? And that's because of this right here, because we actually have to set the variable if it's a class. So it calls set class, passes in that, it sets that class, and then returns the class so that we can set this variable. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but that's how it works. Set variable. I don't think I changed anything in here. Now, if it looks any different, why is, Oh, because we have to do that for vector 2s. Alright, let's see if I'm missing anything. No. So, scene manager, done. Custom class, done. Editor, we did the right variable. We did right class and right component. Okay. So, I believe that is it for saving and loading. Now, this has nothing to do with the editor so far. So now we actually have to do the editor. So, inspector. Alright. Had to rebuild this whole function. Okay, I don't think there's anything. Had to change to a.get0.c. Oh, okay, right here. We're going to use a.0 or a.get0.c.simple name. And that's going to be the name of the window. So if I change that, then I change the variables. Okay. So the variables are going to be a bit different. So before we had a list of behavior attributes, and now what we need is an array list of logic behaviors. Now, behavior attributes looks a lot different. So, inside of behavior attributes, before we get into the rest of this, what's going to be in here is, here we're going to get the class whenever we create a behavior attribute. And then we are going to get a new list of behavior fields, and public int height. Oh, yeah, these are the variables. I don't know what the crap I'm thinking. Yeah, then we're gonna have int height, and this is going to be, well, normal, like how we had it before. It'll be the height of the height of the area whenever we start, or whenever we do the areas. And here is our constructor. So public behavior attributes, it's going to be engine.object saying c equals o.getClass, and then we're calling setClass o0 and height minus equals 2. So this 0 is the offset. Now the offset is the x offset, left and right. So kind of like the tab, how far over that tab's going to be, versus height is, of course, the actual height. And the setClass method takes in a engine.object and an int offset. So the first thing we do is we get all the fields for that class. we're going to loop through all the fields, and then we're going to cache the field that we're currently iterated to. Now here we kind of did this similar to how we did it before, but what we did was we just checked to see if it was a logic behavior, and if it was a logic behavior, then skip the last one or the first one or whatever. Similar thing. What we're doing is we're just checking to see if the variable is called enabled or expanded. If it's called enabled or expanded, we just want to skip that variables, because we're going to use those variables somewhere else. And then here we're going to say this.fields.add new behavior field OF offset. Now behavior fields down here is basically just like a subclass, whatever you want to call it. It's just engine.object, it's got a field, it's got an offset. It's basically just to store our information about the field. So here's a constructor. Of course, you're going to pass in everything. It's going to set everything. It's super simple. It's just a holder class so that we can get a list of a group of information. And then here we're going to say if the class, if this class is a custom class, then we're going to try and to do this. So if it's expanded, then we're going to set the class. If it is not expanded, then we're not going to set the class, because, well, we don't need to view that information, so we don't need that. We don't need that offset, and we don't need to actually get the behavior attributes for the editor because it's not viewable, so it's not clickable. And then here's the catch, and then height plus equals 24. And that's why we say height minus equals 2 right here, because before how we had it was we had like an if statement or whatever that says if blah 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 blah, then height plus equals 24. But if it's the very end of the behavior, then we need to set it to 22. And it's just easier to do it this way. Just add 24 to all of them, and then at the very end just subtract 2. And that's all that is. Alright, so now that we have that taken care of, we need to, and once you do that, you're going to have several things popping up, several errors or whatever popping up over here. It'll probably pop up in editor, inspector. There's a few different things it's going to pop up in, and don't worry, there's no issue. It's just you just need to change how it does some of these things. Like here is saying using att.c.getSimpleName, and that's all it is stupid little stuff like that. And att, or the attribute itself, because we're using this list of behavior attributes, it's going to hold all of the information that we need. So if we get the attribute, this variable right here holds all the fields. Here holds the actual class for the behavior, not for any of the extra classes, just the behavior. if I run into more. Okay, we already went over this one. Had to change to a.get0.c. And there was a lot more, but this is just examples of what you're going to see. And like I said, you're just changing it to the new variable information, or the new behavior attribute information. And also shortened it. Okay, I didn't get very far in here, did I? Okay, so I had to rebuild the entire draw variables method. I think I started it and then we had to go to behavior attributes, but here I'm just I'm getting a list of behavior fields, and I'm just passing in a.geti.fields, and then we're going to start with a padding of 0. And then we're going to loop through all of the fields, because this list of fields for this behavior is all the fields for the behavior, including custom classes inside. And then here we're going to get the current behavior field for that we've looped to. We're going to get the type of class that that field is, and then we're going to get the type name. So if name.equals string, this is basically stuff that we've done before. This right here. It's just there was some changes made. I actually shrank it. There was another try catch statement. And I just basically, whenever you're looking at this on yours, it's going to say there's going to be a try right here. There's going to be 2 more catches down here. There's like another variable or something over here, and then like a variable over here or something. You basically just delete all that, and you're just going to keep this try catch statement right here. And it's basically going to be string p equals bf dot field dot get bf dot object dot toString. So basically all that's changed right here is this and bf.field. And then let's see here. Right here was behavior, or bf.field.set bf.object and bf.field.getName right here. Other than that, it was all the same. So yeah, it's not really hard to change. It's just tedious. It's on every single one of these. So basically, you just change that, and that to be good with the new behavior fields. Same thing with this, that. Same thing with floats. Same thing. And same thing all the way down. We're just removing that try catch statement, a couple of those variables, and just keeping this one try catch statement. And then just changing those things. So texture, GUI skin, font, material shader. And yes, right here. So at the very end, after audio clip, and before this else statement right here, there is this one right here. So we're saying if it's a custom class field, then we're basically going to do exactly the same thing that we're doing for booleans. So it's going to be boolean p engine.customClass bf.getField bf.object.expanded, and here is how we're going to set that arrow that we can click on to open and close whatever we're looking at. Okay, and then here is the actual toggle. So GUI.toggle p blah 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 blah. And yeah, like I said, it's exactly the same as Boolean. I actually copy and pasted it from Booleans. So if p does not equal v, this part is different. We're going to say engine.customClass bf.field.getObject.expanded equals v. So we're setting it directly instead of using this bf.field.set method. We're just going to set it directly because we already know that it derives from custom class. And then we're going to call set attributes editor.getInspected and then false. So that was another thing that I changed, was the set attributes method. So before we get to that, I had to add Boolean to set attributes so that we can specify whether we want to reset the scroll. Yes. So this false right here on set attributes is telling us whether we want to reset the scroll or not whenever we set the attributes. But how we want it is every time we click on the open and close button for the class, then we want to set or reset the attributes because it has to recalculate the size and it has to get those extra variables inside of that class. All right, so here, I don't know why I didn't make this like a multi. I'll fix that after the tutorial series. All right, so same thing with down here. We also need to change that too. So the set attributes method, it's going to take in engine.object and it's going to be Boolean reset scroll. And then we're basically right here just going to say if reset scroll, then scroll equals 0. If not, we're going to not do anything with the scroll. So other than that, I believe that is it. Pretty sure. And it's kind of a pain in the butt just because there was so many little tedious things that I had to tinker with, and that's just what made it such a pain. So here's my test right here. Basically I have, well, I've always had this. It's actually attached in my scene. So for now, we are going to, if we have a custom class as a variable, we cannot have it set to null. If it's set to null, then there's going to be issues. So for now, we have to make sure that there's an instance. So as a test, I have it just called my custom class equal to new class test. And class test, I just put some random text in there and then some boolean. But every custom class has to extend from custom class. If not, it's not going to work. And for now, we cannot have it in the project folder, like inside of this scripts folder. For now, we have to have it in our game folder. Now, I will change that probably in the next episode whenever we do lists. But I just haven't done it yet. I was gonna do it this morning, but yeah, just totally not feeling it. All right, so to show you what it looks like now, it does save space. Custom classes are great, especially like for use of databases and stuff like that. Custom classes are great for databases. So if you're making like a shooter game or whatever it is, you could have like a list, and each element in that list is a custom class that says holds information about a specific weapon or something like that. So I have it set to scene, and here's test.java, and here is our custom class. So we can actually open it to view the information and then close it again. And it doesn't reset the Windows scroll. And all of this does save. So here's some text. And if I just change that to bloop, I'll turn that off. All right, there we go. Bloop, and it's off. All right. So I hope this wasn't too screwed up of an episode, but it was very complicated to actually get that to work properly. I actually spent quite a bit of time just writing, scrapping, and just doing it all over again. And I hope that arrays are not going to be the same way, but we will see. So I guess that is it for this episode, and I will see you on the next one.